there, this is Mr. McCluskey, and today I'm going to teach you finally how to solve equations where all the steps are involved. So the first video I made, I taught you how to solve simple two-step equations. Then the next video I added in parentheses, and then the next video I added in combining like terms. And then finally the next video there was variables on both sides of the equal sign. And now finally in this video we're going to have all of those steps in one problem. Okay, so I'm going to show you all of those steps in one problem, what that looks like. Again, the best way to learn is to print this document out. I will put it in the Google Classroom, and you can print this out. These problems will be in a document. The best way to learn is to follow along with me, and then I'll have some problems also in that document that you can practice on your own to see if you actually understand what we're talking about. Okay, so let's start out with number one. The first step, as always, whenever there's parentheses, is to distribute. So you take this number that is on the outside of the parentheses and you multiply it by everything on the inside of the parentheses. So you slide a 1 in front of the y whenever there is no number there, and you do 8 times 1, so that turns into 8y. And 8 times 4 is 32. And then you come over to this other side of the parentheses and you multiply the negative 2 times 1. And the negative 2 times negative 1, and that's negative 2y. And negative 2 times negative 1 is positive 2. Negative 3y plus 70, there's no parentheses over there, so you just drop everything down. And then after you distribute, the next thing that you do is combine the like terms. Remember, to be a like term, you have to be on the same side of the equal sign, and you have to either both have a y or both not have a y. So like, for example, this 8y and this negative 2y, they're both on the same side of the equal sign, and they both have a y, so you combine them together. That means add them together. So 8 plus negative 2 is 6y. There's another set of like terms. It's this 32 and this positive 2. They both don't have a y, and they're on the same side of the equal sign, so you add those together. And 32 and 2 is positive 34. Everything on the right side just drops because there's no like terms over there, so the negative 3y plus 70 just comes down for now. Okay, so we've distributed, then we combine like terms. The next step in the process is to move the variable to one side. I always like to move the variable to the left side because that makes sense to me. So the negative 3y over here, you add 3y to cancel it out on the right side. And whatever you do to one side of the equal sign, you have to do to the other. So you add 3y to the 6y on the left side. So 6y plus 3y is 9y. The plus 34 drops. The positive 70 drops. Okay, and now we're all the way back to that first video that I made where it's a simple two-step equation. So we need to add or subtract something. You subtract the 34. Subtract the 34. Cancels, the 9y drops. 70 minus 34 is 36. And then you divide by 9 on both sides. Divide by 9. 36 divided by 9 is 4. So y is equal to 4. All right, now number 2. I like to separate my two sides of the equal sign by drawing a line. The first step, as always, whenever there's parentheses, is to distribute. So you take this 7 that's on the outside of the parentheses and you multiply it by the 1 and by the 3. 7 times 1 is 7. 7 times 3 is 21. Plus 9 drops. Then you come over here to the right side. And you slide a 1 in front of the x. And you multiply 5 times 1. And 5 times negative 2. 5 times 1 is 5. 5 times negative 2 is negative 10. The negative 3x, which is on the outside of the parentheses, just drops. After you distribute, then you combine the like terms. So on the left side, there's a 21 and a 9 that are like terms. That turns into a 30. So it's 7x plus 30. And then you go over to the right side, and there's a 5x and a negative 3x. They both have an x, and they're on the same side of the equal sign, so that means they're like terms. So you add them together. 5 plus negative 3 is 2x. The negative 10 has no like terms, so it just drops down. Okay, so we distributed, we combine like terms. Now we got to move the variable to one side. Okay, like I said, I always like to move my variable to the left side. So it's a positive 2x over here, so we subtract 2x. subtract 2x, that cancels. 7 minus 2 is 5. The plus 30 drops. The negative 10 drops. And now we're all the way back to a regular two-step equation. We need to add or subtract something. We subtract the 30. Subtract 30. That cancels. The 5x drops. Negative 10 minus 30 is negative 40. And finally, the last step is to divide by whatever number is left next to the variable. So we divide by the 5, divide by the 5. Negative 40 divided by 5 is negative 8. So x is equal to negative 8 on number 2. All right, there's 1 and 2. Now we're going on to number 3. All right, number 3. Put our line through the equal sign here. And then on the left side, there's a set of parentheses with a 9 on the outside. So we got to multiply 9 by 2 and by negative 3x. 9 times 2 is 18. 9 times negative 3 is negative 27x. The minus 29 on the outside of the parentheses just drops down. And then over on the right side, there's another set of parentheses, but there's no number on the outside of the parentheses. So that means you have to slide a 1 right there, and you put a 1 in front of the x, and then you take that negative 1 and you multiply it by 1, and you multiply it by negative 23. This 8x is just going to drop down. You do not distribute it, because in order to distribute something, it needs to be right next to the parentheses. When there's nothing there, you put a 1 there. So negative 1 times 1 is negative 1x. Negative 1 times negative 23 is positive 23. Okay, we're done distributing. Now we got to combine all the like terms. On the left side, I see an 18 and a negative 29. They both don't have an x, and they're on the same side of the equal sign. So you combine them together by adding. 18 plus negative 29 is negative 11. The negative 27x drops. And then over on the right side, I see an 8x and a negative 1x that both have an x, and they're both on the same side of the equal sign. So you add those together. 8 plus negative 1 is 7x. The plus 23 has no like terms, so you drop that down. Okay, so we've distributed, we've combined like terms. Now we need to move the x to one side. Okay, so as always, I like to move my x to the left side. There's a positive 7x on the right side, so we subtract 7x. Subtract 7x. That cancels. Negative 27 minus 7 is negative 34x. The minus 11 drops down. The positive 23 drops down. Okay, so now we have negative 34x minus 11 is equal to 23, which means we need to add 11 to both sides. So that cancels. The negative 34x drops. 23 plus 11 is 34. And then our next step is to divide by negative 34. Divide by negative 34. That cancels. 34 divided by negative 34 is negative 1. So x is equal to negative 1. All right, number 4. Draw our line through our equal sign. There is, on the left side, there's a negative 3 outside the parentheses. So you take that negative 3 and you multiply it by 2. And you multiply it by negative 4. Negative 3 times 2 is negative 6x. Negative 3 times negative 4 is positive 12. The 8x over here just drops down. And then on the right side, there's another set of parentheses. You put a 1 in front of the x, you do 3 times 1. And 3 times negative 6. 3 times 1 is 3x. 3 times negative 6 is negative 18. After you distribute, you combine the like terms. I only see one pair of like terms that is on the left side of the equal sign. It's the 8x and the negative 6x. You combine those. 8 plus negative 6 is 2x. And the plus 12 just drops. There's no like terms on the right side, so everything just drops. 3x minus 18. Okay, after you distribute and combine like terms, now you need to move the x's to one side. I like to move the x's to the left side, as I keep on saying. So we subtract the 3x, subtract the 3x, and that cancels. 2 minus 3 is negative 1x. The plus 12 drops. The negative 18 drops. So we have negative 1x plus 12 is equal to negative 18. We need to add or subtract something, so we subtract the 12 to both sides. That cancels, the negative 1x drops. Negative 18 minus 12 is negative 30. Okay, and finally, the last thing is to divide by whatever number is left next to x. So we divide by negative 1, divide by negative 1. Negative 30 divided by negative 1 is positive 30. So x is equal to positive 30. All right, these last two are actually going to be what I call special cases, where your answer is either no solution or infinite solution. We talked about these in the last video, but I just wanted to mention them one more time, because if you only mention something one time, usually it doesn't stick. So let me show you what these special cases look like. You follow the same pattern even when it's a special case. You start out by distributing, so 3 times negative 2 is negative 6. 3 times negative 3x is negative 9x. There's no parentheses on the right side, so you drop everything down. Negative 9x minus 4 drops. Okay, there's no like terms to combine, because no like terms on the left side, no like terms on the right side, so that means we get to move on to the step where we move the x's to one side. And we add 9x and add 9x, and we run into a problem. This is the special case problem. Okay, when the x's cancel on both sides, that means it is a special case, which means your answer is either no solution or infinite solution. Okay, the way you tell the difference is by looking at the numbers that are remaining. So on the left side, we have a negative 6 left, and on the right side, we have a negative 4 left. Those numbers are not equal to each other, so our answer is no solution. You can either write out the words no solution like this, or you can put the symbol for no solution, which is a 0 with a line through it, like that no smoking sign. Okay. So that is an example of no solution. Over here, we're going to have an example of infinite solution. Let me show you what that looks like. So on the left side, we have 5h minus 7. There's no distributing to do, so everything just drops over there. And over here on the right side, we have some parentheses, so we got to distribute. 5 times 1h is 5h. 5 times negative 2 is negative 10. The positive 3 just drops. And after you distribute, you got to combine the like terms. There's no like terms on the left side, so everything just drops down over there. On the right side, we have a negative 10 and a positive 3. A negative 10 and a positive 3, when you add those together, that becomes negative 7. The 5h just drops. Okay, now we got to move the variables to one side. When we move the variables to one side, we subtract 5h, and we subtract 5h. Once again, just like over here, the variables canceled out on both sides, okay? Which means this is a special case, which means our answer is either going to be no solution or infinite solution. It is no solution when the numbers left are different, like they were on number 5. It is infinite solution when the numbers left are the same, like we have a negative 7 and a negative 7 left here. Okay, so these numbers are the same, which means our answer is infinite solution. You can either write out the words infinite solution, or you can make the infinity sign like that. Okay, and what this means is for no solution, that means there's no number that exists that you could substitute in for x that would make both sides equal each other. Okay, so your answer is no solution. When it's infinite solution, that means you can take literally any number from 1 to 1 million to infinity and put it in for h, and both sides would come out to be the same no matter what number you put in there. Okay, that's all I got for you today. Hopefully you now know how to solve equation 4.